this point, owning a McLaren on YouTube almost feels like the beginning of a disaster story. Seriously, once you start paying attention to it, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Take Tavarish. We watched him buy a flooded P1 for over $500,000.
I got the chance to buy my ultimate dream car, a McLaren P1, for a fraction of its original price.
Only to see the rebuild spiral into a mechanical nightmare that tested the absolute limits of what anyone on the platform has ever attempted. Then we have DailyDrivenExotics, who got their hands on a McLaren Senna.
I have a Senna up in the air.
One of the most extreme road cars ever built, and spent what felt like an eternity chasing endless warning lights and persistent fault codes. Even Manny Khoshbin owned a one-of-a-kind Hermès Speedtail worth over $3 million.
My spaceship has arrived, and I'm talking about my McLaren Speedtail Hermès edition.
And still ended up selling it because, at the end of the day, the car simply never made him feel anything. And fans started connecting all of this. They started calling it the McLaren curse. And honestly, when you look at how many creators have gone through this exact same cycle, it is really hard to argue with that. So we are going to go through all of it today. Every creator, every disaster, and every reason this brand keeps ending up in the same conversation. So let's start with Tavarish, because his story is probably the most extreme version of this whole pattern. Back in 2022, Hurricane Ian hit Florida, and one of the most viral clips from that disaster was a bright yellow McLaren P1 being dragged through floodwater outside someone's garage. For car people, that was genuinely painful to watch. And then Tavarish bought it. We saw him pick up the flood-damaged P1 from Copart for around $575,000.
Today, I find out what is wrong with this car.
It got caught in a massive flood from a 140-mile-an-hour hurricane,
announcing he was going to rebuild it entirely on camera. People assumed it was just another big project, but it became clear pretty fast that this was on a completely different level. The car had been sitting in salt water. The hybrid system was completely destroyed, the electronics were a total mess, and on top of all that, the car carried a certificate of destruction. In Florida, that essentially means the state considers the car beyond saving. A lot of people genuinely believed it could never legally drive on public roads again. The cost started adding up fast. A replacement battery for the P1 alone can run over $100,000, and a new carbon tub could cost several $100,000 more. These are not parts you can just order online, and almost nobody outside of McLaren actually knows how to work on this stuff properly. Reddit threads at the time were full of people saying, we would see over $1 million in the car before it ever drove again. So the project changed direction.
And he's come to us to work on that.
Instead of a stock rebuild, we saw it transform into something completely custom, eventually becoming the P1 Evo. Tavarish even brought in Frank Stephenson, the original designer of the P1, to help reimagine the car. Some people thought that was a smart call given the damage. Others thought it had just become an endless money pit dressed up as a YouTube series. And honestly, that project nearly broke the channel by the end, because while the P1 videos were getting millions of views, everyone started noticing something happening behind the scenes. Uploads slowed down massively. Fans started complaining that the project was dragging on forever. Comments on Reddit and YouTube were full of people joking that the car would never be finished, and that the P1 had basically become a permanent burden hanging over the channel. At the same time, the pressure of constantly escalating these massive projects seemed to be taking a major toll. It was clear that the sheer burnout of managing a rebuild this complex was draining the fun out of making videos altogether. Because once a project becomes that massive, you cannot really walk away from it anymore. Every upload turns into, where is the P1? Every comment section becomes people demanding updates. Even years later, viewers are still following every single episode, waiting for the car to finally run properly again. That is what makes this story way bigger than just one broken hypercar. Then there is DailyDrivenExotics, and their McLaren Senna story follows almost the exact same arc. Damon got the Senna when it was still one of the most talked about McLarens on the market.
Senna exhaust. Who's excited?
Oh, it's done?
It is a $1 million hypercar built to feel like a road legal race car, and DDE treated it exactly that way. We saw them driving it hard, modifying it, and making content around it constantly. For a while, it really did look like the perfect channel car, but then the problems started showing up. Fault codes, limp mode, tuning issues, and leaks. One episode was literally dedicated to dealing with a mechanic they no longer trusted who had left components improperly installed. Another was about turbo inlet problems that kept triggering the same error codes even after they thought they had fixed everything. Fans quickly noticed that the Senna would just disappear from videos for stretches at a time while repairs were being sorted out off camera. What made people pay close attention was the fact that this was not some neglected project car sitting in a random garage. This was a well-funded YouTube channel with a multi-million-dollar hypercar, and they were still going in circles chasing the same issues over and over again. And honestly, the damage went way beyond just the car itself, because the Senna slowly started becoming the symbol of chaos around the channel. Fans were already criticizing the team for constantly bouncing between mechanics, unfinished projects, and expensive builds that seemed to spiral out of control. Around the same period, viewers started noticing other cars disappearing from the garage too, while the team dealt with mounting repair headaches and financial rumors online. At first, the Senna represented success for DDE. It was the dream hypercar, but over time, viewers started associating it with stress, downtime, mechanics, and endless troubleshooting. Even when the car was fixed, there was always this feeling that another issue was right around the corner. Then, just like people had started expecting by that point, the Senna quietly disappeared.
Now, I know you guys have been wondering what happened with the Senna. Look, don't hate me. Don't be mad at me. Things don't always work out on this channel the way we'd like them to. We're running a business. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people we rely on. I know the Senna has kind of disappeared into thin air, and I apologize about that. I'd like to give you some answers to what's going on with that car, but I need you to not hate me.
It was eventually sold through August Motor Cars with no dramatic farewell video or huge explanation. It just left the fleet, and that silence almost made the story bigger because fans had already seen this happen too many times before. But while the Senna was quietly exiting the picture, Matt Armstrong was just getting started with his own version of this nightmare. His story got people hooked because it felt way more relatable and way more brutal at the same time. Instead of buying a $1 million hypercar or a flooded collectible, Matt picked up a heavily crashed McLaren 720S from Amsterdam, thinking it was another ambitious rebuild project. On the surface, the damage looked bad but totally manageable, which is exactly the type of challenge that built the channel in the first place. But once the teardown began, the real disaster was revealed underneath the bodywork. The carbon tub, the structural core of the entire car, had serious damage. On a modern McLaren, that discovery is about as bad as it gets. McLaren repair specialists reportedly wouldn't even touch it, which left Matt with only one option: replace the entire tub from scratch. That meant stripping the car down to its bare bones and transferring everything into another chassis. Engine, suspension, electronics, fuel system, wiring, interior, literally every single component. And the cost just became insane. Matt reportedly spent around 52,000 pounds just sourcing another tub so the project could even continue. Then came the endless problems afterward. Oil leaks from the gearbox, smoke pouring from the car at one point, electrical faults, and alignment issues. Even when the car looked close to finished, another problem would immediately appear. Viewers started realizing something important during all of this. Modern McLarens are unbelievably expensive the second things go wrong. A set of carbon ceramic brakes on a 720S can reportedly cost well over $20,000 to replace. Major services run into the thousands, and carbon tub repairs can easily climb into five-figure territory before labor even starts. That is what made Matt's rebuild feel so different from normal car content. It stopped looking like someone fixing a supercar in a garage and started looking like a battle against a machine that was never meant to be repaired outside the factory. Fans watched him chase faults, tear the car apart repeatedly, and slowly realized just how complicated these cars actually are under the skin. And while Matt was deep in the trenches of his 720S teardown, real estate entrepreneur Manny Khoshbin was dealing with a very different kind of McLaren headache. Manny is probably one of the most recognizable faces of McLaren ownership online. Unlike creators who only buy one or two cars from the brand, Manny went all in. He filled his garage with multiple Mercedes SLR McLarens, a carbon fiber P1, and eventually the ultra-rare Speedtail Hermès edition. For years, fans viewed him as one of the brand's biggest champions because he constantly praised their design and raw performance. And honestly, his experience with the P1 only backed that up.
Well, this morning I was driving to work and I was listening to the song P1 Cleaner Than My Church Shoes, something like that.
We heard him call the P1 one of the greatest cars he had ever driven.
Feels like a go-kart on a steroids.
He loved how mechanical and raw it felt, constantly praising it for having a kind of soul that many newer cars just don't have. But the vibe changed completely once the McLaren Speedtail arrived. The Speedtail was supposed to be the ultimate flex. Only 106 were built worldwide, and Manny's was a true one-of-one Hermès collaboration worth over $3 million. But almost immediately, the frustration started slipping into his videos.
P1 has been my favorite car for the past 10 years. But I haven't driven it lately, so I want to take the P1 out and to see, is it really my former favorite car, or is it still a favorite?
The biggest issue was the wireless charging pad. Manny repeatedly ran into problems with the system failing to maintain the battery. At one point, the battery went completely dead because the charger wasn't positioned perfectly, turning a basic task into a major headache since the car's doors and front trunk are electrically operated.
This is one of the things I don't like about this car. This charger is so heavy and the wire is so short, so it's kind of an eyesore and it's very expensive.
Watching the process of just keeping the car charged sounded absurdly complicated. We saw that getting to the battery required hidden emergency keys, manual releases, and a tedious sequence of steps. Fans in the comments started joking that keeping a modern McLaren on the road felt more like maintaining a spaceship. Over time, Manny became noticeably less enthusiastic about the car. He eventually admitted that the Speedtail never emotionally connected with him. He felt it was too quiet, less exciting off the line than he wanted, and awkward to drive because it relied on cameras instead of traditional mirrors. Every time he walked past the car in his garage, it just didn't make him want to drive it.
It just didn't do it for me under the hood. The V8 hybrid had a lot of challenges with the wireless charger, but they did fix it at the end. Just every time I walk by the car, it didn't get me excited to get behind the wheel. As thrilling as it looks being in the center seat, it just didn't have the soul like the P1.
That confession was a massive talking point online because this wasn't just a random critic. This was someone who loved the brand and still considered the P1 one of his absolute favorites. It left enthusiasts wondering if McLaren's modern high-tech hypercars were simply becoming too digital and too frustrating to enjoy long-term. If one of the most experienced hypercar collectors in the world starts losing interest in a flagship McLaren, it forces everyone else to ask the exact same question. Why do so many creators eventually end up letting their McLarens go? The pattern keeps repeating with other major automotive creators too. Take Shmee150. He became one of the internet's biggest McLaren ambassadors during the mid-2000s. But his most iconic car was the 675 LT Spider.
Hi guys, I'm Shmee and today is an exceptionally special day. It's also a pretty surreal one because I'm going to be going up to McLaren Manchester to take delivery of my new McLaren 675 LT.
A highly desirable, limited-run supercar that sold out almost instantly. For Tim, the 675 LT was a long-term staple in the garage. He constantly praised its driving dynamics and defended it against the internet's reliability complaints. Yet, even with that loyalty, cracks appeared.
675 LT Spider has a little bit of a problem.
In 2020, Tim revealed the car had developed issues during a routine service that kept it off the road for months. He didn't turn it into a dramatic rant, but viewers noticed just how often servicing and maintenance dominated his McLaren ownership compared to the Porsches and Ferraris in his collection. Then there is Mr. JWW. Back in the mid-2000s, he owned an incredibly rare McLaren P1 Carbon Series, representing the absolute peak of the platform.
Casually in a Carbon Edition McLaren P1.
But by 2017, James shocked viewers when he announced he was selling the P1 to buy a Bugatti Veyron instead.
I've owned a McLaren Senna for nearly 5 years. I believe this is an entry-level hypercar. And while the ownership journey has been incredible, it could be time to move on and move up.
Even though the P1 was one of McLaren's crown jewels, James moved on to a car he felt was more emotionally satisfying. That really highlights the core of the theory. Creators don't always sell their McLarens because the cars mechanically explode. Sometimes the cars just don't stay rewarding long term. People fall in love with the technology and the initial hype, but eventually move on to cars that feel more special and usable every day. The internet absolutely picked up on this. On Reddit and YouTube, discussions around the brand are constantly centered on maintenance anxiety, warranty concerns, and brutal depreciation. As one owner joked, people only truly understand the cost of a McLaren once they try servicing it out of warranty. Whether it is Shmee defending his 675 LT, Mr. JWW moving on to a Bugatti, or Matt Armstrong fighting to rebuild a wrecked 720S from the tub up, the cycle always looks similar. Massive hype at the beginning, the car dominates the channel for a while, and then another project takes its place once the repair headaches, costs, or downtime add up. What exactly explains all of this? The reality comes down to a factual pattern that has nothing to do with bad luck. Many McLarens can be extremely expensive to fix and tend to depreciate steeply, especially when driven hard. These are cutting-edge machines built with high-tech carbon tubs and complex hybrid powertrains. They demand careful upkeep, and it is well documented that most models do not hold their value well. A lot of that steep depreciation is driven by the high original prices, the relentless rollout of newer models, and ongoing reliability and maintenance reputations that hurt resale value. In other words, an owner can easily end up dumping huge sums into basic servicing or repairs. For example, a U65 OS can lose 40% to 50% of its value in just 5 or 6 years. And even rare hypercars like the P1 or Speedtail require intricate, specialized care just to stay operational. Recent recalls underline the fact that even brand new McLarens can have problem areas. In 2025, McLaren issued a recall covering a handful of 600 LT, 720S, Artura, GT, and GTS models, because the rear brake lines were routed incorrectly into the control module, potentially causing the opposite wheel to lock up under heavy braking. Past recalls have also affected components like wings, hoods, and airbags. So even the absolute newest cars from the brand sometimes have to hit the shop. All of this means that when a YouTuber's McLaren gets damaged or starts throwing codes, the repair process can feel hopeless. Fans see Tavarish spending tens of thousands on replacement parts just to keep the P1 project moving, or Damon chasing endless electrical faults on his Senna, and they start to wonder if every McLaren is a ticking time bomb. So what is next for this theory? It is likely to remain a hot topic for viewers and creators alike. We are seeing McLaren launch their next generation of high-performance cars, including the Artura Spider and the highly anticipated McLaren W1, which is the official successor to the legendary P1. The brand's reputation heavily relies on making these cutting-edge models more bulletproof. Some enthusiasts expect McLaren's newest hypercars to be far more reliable, since even the manufacturer knows that reliability is the first thing people bring up when the brand's name is mentioned online. On the flip side, if these complex, low-volume hybrids continue to prove temperamental, we will probably just see the cycle repeat itself. YouTubers will buy them for the initial video views, and then quietly sell them the moment the honeymoon phase or the manufacturer warranty ends. But until those new cars hit the road, the McLaren curse will keep its grip on the car community. It raises the ultimate question of whether the thrill of driving these cars is ever worth the stress of owning them. Tuna no Crust, signing off.